I'll call to order the Arvada City Council meeting for January 23rd, 2023. And call upon I'll call upon Councilmember Marriott, but then I've indicated to the Scouts that we're going to be asking them to assist us with kicking things off tonight. Mr. Marriott.
Thank you, Your Honor. Will you please join me in a moment of silent reflection? And now for the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd like to invite the Scouts up to the podium, and if you'd please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then at the conclusion of the Pledge of Allegiance, if you'd please introduce yourselves individually and let us know what troop you're with and what badge you're working on. But let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was a good, strong rendition. Thank you. So if you'll pull that microphone down a little bit so that you can, so everybody can hear you. Very good.
Hello, my name is Noel Weindorf. Wait, hold on. What badge are you working on? And I'm working on building a better world.
Good.
My name is Max Hoffman, and I'm working on building a better world too.
Great.
My name is Graham, and I am also working on building a better world.
Hi, my name's Escher DeLong, and I am also building a better world.
Hello, my name is Jackson, and I am also working on building a better world.
Hello, my name is Liam Dornbeck, and I am also working on building a better world.
Very good. We didn't have that merit badge when I was in Scouts. Kristen Rush, if you'll do the roll call.
Mayor Williams.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Jones. Here. Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Here.
Councilmember Marriott.
Here.
Councilmember Mormon.
Here.
Councilmember Simpson.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
We next have the approval of the minutes of January 9th, 2023. Any changes or corrections? Not seeing any requests. They'll stand approved as presented. We will now move on to public comment. We have Cameron DeCoster. Even after all these years, I mispronounce names on a nightly basis. So,
I could have written it more clearly, I suppose. Yes, hi, my name is Cameron DeCoster. I am the den leader of these Scouts. We're the Arrow of Light Den from PAC 667 here in Arvada. And we just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to come and visit the council and witness this meeting. And I also just wanted to say I'm really proud of these Scouts. Most of them have been through Cub Scouts all the way from Tigers, a couple from Lions, which is kindergarten, so a long time, and they're just about to transition to Scouts BSA coming up here in February, and I'm really proud of them. So thank you very much.
that's great. Glad they're here tonight. We're going to be swearing in a couple of new judges for us, so you'll get to see that. Amy Travin.
Sorry, I think I'm at the 5 minutes.
Okay.
It's on the agenda.
You bet.
Thank you.
Melissa Norris.
Hi, I'm Melissa Norris. I'm here with Arvadans for Social Justice. I'd sincerely like to commend the city for finally selecting a DEI consultant group. It's been 3 years in the making, but nonetheless, we finally have a step in the right direction. I know I'll personally be very intrigued to hear the study findings from the DEI assessment, mostly because we've been largely kept in the dark. Even after being told that community members would have visibility into this process. The whole purpose of DEI community-based work is to involve the community. Many of us have raised our hands and our voices over our interest and concern for a more diverse, inclusive, and equitable Arvada. Arvada has a rich, deeply involved grassroots community of citizens who have committed themselves to the betterment for all Arvadans. Sad to see that we have largely still been kept in the dark. Much like these Boy Scouts, I have to make sure that we are building a better world, and that starts with making sure that the Arvada that my children grow up in is diverse, is equitable, is inclusive. So my questions to the consultants will be, how will you engage community in your work? Will you be reviewing police data on stops, arrests, and court data? Will you be reviewing public school data on suspensions, expulsions, referrals to law enforcement, and arrests? Will they be reviewing city programs and events to see they are culturally relevant, accessible, and reflective of the diversity in the community, including engagement of diverse vendors? With that said, I'd like to make sure that we are part of the process, this community, and that we are not having a one-way conversation.
Thank you. Next, Renee Nelson and Jeff Cannon. Are you tag teaming this?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Renee Nelson. I'm with the Arvada Harvest Festival, and our address is 5640 Yukon Street in Arvada, about 2 blocks from here. That's our home base for the Arvada Harvest Festival and all of our planning throughout the year. What we've done is we've gotten a packet together for you today. Kristen handed it out to you. So we're going to be celebrating our 98th annual Arvada Harvest Festival this year. We're super excited. And we have the designation of being the 3-day community celebration. It's the second longest running continuous event that's been held in Arvada, second only to the Grilly Stampede, and we're super proud of that. We wanted to come today to thank you guys for your support for last year. Our move was large, with a lot of logistics, and we appreciate the staff and all of their hard work on that as well. What we've provided you is a brief background. The Harvest Festival has been in existence since 1925. Prior to that, the Arvada Chamber was a member that was taking care of it. We took over the reins, I believe it was in 1984. Thank you, Jeff. It's in your packet. And then with that, we have been community partners. Our Arvada JC Hall, as I noted, is over on Yukon Street. That's on your page 3. We do have a historic designation. We are one of the oldest commercial buildings within the city at this time. That building was designated in 1902, and it was by the Church of the Seventh-day Adventists. They turned that building over to us as the Arvada Junior Chamber of 1944, and we were happy to have that designation through Jefferson County as a historical site. We've also given you a copy of the Strawberry Days that was held on June 17th of 1911, just for background, and then a general history. We also provided information on some of our long-running events, which includes the 31st Annual Kids Parade, 40th Annual Food Fair, 17th Annual Garden Harvest Fair, and a 14th Annual Teddy Bear Picnic, which are just a few. We also have more information about our announcing stations and how we engage with the public and the civic clubs, Apex Park, Lake Arbor Optimist, Flatiron Dance, several Boy Scout troops, the Arvada Gardeners, and more. There's a short list on the page next to that, and I will turn it over to Jeff.
Oh, hi guys. Thank you for always being part of the Arvada Harvest Festival. That's what we appreciate the most. You know, when the city's involved, the Harvest Festival is always good. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you both.
Thank you.
And we have some people via Zoom tonight.
The first one is Taylor Jarnigan.
Hello.
Good evening.
I'd just like to say thank you to the City Council for moving forward on the DEI initiative. The City of Arvada is a growing community in a growing metropolitan area. And in order for us to be competitive, particularly things like hiring, people wanting to move to this area, businesses in this area, diversity is something that we as a city need to encourage. So again, I just wanted to say thank you to the City Council for moving forward on this initiative.
Thank you, sir.
That's all.
Thank you. Next. Good evening, Daniel.
Good evening. How are you tonight?
Excellent.
Great. Good to be with you. And I just had to take time out. I am with my wife visiting her father and other family members in Honolulu. Sorry about that. But I had to join you tonight to, as you've already heard, some thank you and applause for the moving on the selection of the DEI consultant. I come with the thought that this is going to be, I think, a good opportunity as the city services are assessed to continue the conversation about the creation of a community-involved DEI committee, task force, something that has the opportunity for you all to have information from representatives of the community along with the internal DEI committee. Things like last time I was before you to bring a request for a resolution with regards to the renaming of Mount Evans, to have a body of people that can help with decisions such as that of when it's going to be in the best interest of the city and citizens to take such an action. I think that will be a good example of what we will be able to accomplish in the future together. Speaking of that, the governor has not acted yet, and it is still possible for the city, you all, to send a word to the governor to be able to encourage the renaming of Mount Evans to Mount Blue Sky. I come before you as a mestizo person, a person of indigenous background along with my European Spanish background. And there are many of us in Arvada. There are Native Americans in Arvada, and I call upon any Native Americans in Arvada, any mestizo people in Arvada, to call City Council, call the mayor, and urge them to speak up and to support the renaming of Mount Blue Sky. Also, to all Arvada citizens, all of us are diminished by what happened at the Sand Creek Massacre. And all of us ought to be lending our voices, whoever we are, whatever our background, we are all diminished. And all of you also participate in that as a community, caring for one another, striving to be inclusive and mindful of one another's joys and celebrations and pains, that we have the opportunity right here in our own backyard to say, yes, this is a good step in our community on a mountain that looks down upon us. And so again, once more, urge you to consider sending a resolution, sending your voice to the governor to rename Mount Evans to Mount Blue Sky. And again, I finish with a thank you for the work. I look forward to meeting with the consultants and giving information of my perspective along with participating with Arvadans for Social Justice. Good evening.
Thank you, sir. Next. Lynn, are you there? Do we have somebody on the line? Can she not unmute herself, or is this Hang on for a second while we try to handle the technical difficulty. Why don't we see if we can get that resolved? I'll be more than happy to reopen the public comment portion to take her comments. Do we have anybody else in the audience that would like to address City Council at this time? Seeing none, I will temporarily close the public comment portion with the understanding that if we can get the issue resolved.
Hello?
There
I'm
you,
sorry.
very good.
Okay.
Good.
I'm Lynn Clemens. Thank you for listening or staying with me. My name is Lynn Clemens. I live at 6292 Kilmer Loop, Unit 202. I'm speaking in regards to the proposed Farmers Highline Canal realignment in Jefferson County at 5950 McIntyre. I'm the president of the Westwood Villas condo complex in Arvada, which borders this property to the north. The canal realignment must go through a small parcel of Arvada Park District land. Because of the small parcel, a permit is not needed from the city. However, there may be some issues in the proposed steepness of the new canal banks. The canal has been there on the property at 5950 since the 1880s, and the realignment takes out a natural bend and straightens the waterway's path. With global warming upon us, we have no idea the amount of water that will flow through the canal in the future. The structure of this canal will be altered from earthen walls to concrete walls. Concrete walls will increase the flow rate of the water coming down the canal. The Farmers Highline Canal flows directly east of two of my buildings in the condo complex and borders homes at the Lakes of Westwoods, which is the residence directly east of me. I have been told that earthen walls move, and the banks of the walls of the canal are earthen on my eastern border. If the water flows more forcefully out of the canal due to the realignment, it may erode the earthen walls next to my buildings. I'm already having some issues with structural parts of the sidewalks falling away from the buildings on my east side. How can anyone be certain this canal realignment will not change anything downstream of the new canal realignment? So I would like to ask the city to request a $5 million performance bond from the Farmers Highline Canal and the developer of this property who is moving the canal and realigning the canal to ensure the change in the canal will not affect the structural integrity of the city park property, my buildings, and the homes bordering the canal, which are all in Arvada. Thank you for your attention to this request.
Yeah, and as with all requests, we'll ask our city team to look into it. We have your contact information, and we'll get back to you, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time.
Very good. Okay, now I'll close the initial public comment portion, and we'll go through the rest of our business. The consent agenda tonight includes a resolution adopting the City of Arvada's 2023 legislative agenda and a resolution authorizing a construction contract agreement between Arvada and In Situ Form Technologies for the 2022 trenchless sewer main replacement project in an amount not to exceed $1,261,241. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Mr. Marriott.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move to approve consent agenda items R23-010 and R23-011.
Motions for approval. Mr. Jones, how do you vote?
Yes.
Remainder of council joins you. That passes 7-0. Thank you. We have two resolutions tonight. First is Resolution 23012, a resolution authorizing an employment agreement between the City of Arvada and AnnMarie Spain, appointing her as a municipal court relief judge. Judge, do you wish to address us on this, or just like to do the swearing in? Once we, why don't we vote on these two resolutions and then do the two swearing ins? How's that sound? Is that an efficient way to deal with it, everybody? Very good. We'll also consider a resolution authorizing an employment agreement between the City of Arvada and Barbara S. Henk, appointing her as a municipal court relief judge. Do I have a motion? Actually, two motions. Ms. Simpson?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve resolutions R23-012 and R23-013.
Motions for approval of both employment agreements. Now, if I'll let everybody vote. Mr. Jones, how do you vote on those two resolutions?
Yes.
And it is unanimously approved with the rest of council and chambers approving them as well. So, Judge, if you would like to do the honors. Now, let's be official.
And repeat after me. I, Barbara Henk, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Colorado and faithfully perform the duties of the office of the municipal court for the city of Arvada, upon which I'm about to enter. Congratulations. And then I'll date it in a little bit. Very good. All right, Ms. Bain, come on up. We'll do it in here. Yeah, thank you. Come on up. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, AnnMarie Spain. I, AnnMarie Spain. Do solemnly swear. Do solemnly swear. That I will support the Constitution of the United States. That I will support the Constitution of the United States. And of the state of Colorado. And of the state of Colorado. And faithfully perform the duties. And faithfully perform the duties. Of the office of municipal court. Of the office of municipal court. For the city of Arvada. For the city of Arvada. Upon which I'm about to enter. Congrats. So Miss Spain and I have known each other all the way dating back to law school. We were good friends in law school, and as some of you may remember, she was also up for the position a couple years ago. So I'm very excited to bring her on board because I think she is just as worthy. So, and if we get a quick picture, and then Ms. McLean, why don't you join us since you're here and you have everything. Oops, sorry. Yay. So, thank you very much.
And Judge,
for letting us have this time.
if you could introduce the other
Yes.
relief judges.
So this is AnnMarie McLean. She will be joining us on the February 6th agenda as well, and we will swear her in on that date.
Right. And then if you could, you've got some other relief judges who are here.
Relief judges here as well. I've got Judge Matassa, who's been with the city since 1986.
That's correct.
He's our oldest serving judge in the city.
Longest
right now.
serving.
Yes, longest serving. Good correction. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Williams. And then I also have Judge Daly, who has also been serving with our city for several years, previously as the city attorney, and then more recently as a relief judge for the city. And so they came as well as Judge Tingle came to support our new judges here today.
Great.
So thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you. And we're going to sneak out. Thank you very much.
Very good. Mr. Jones, would you like to do first readings?
I will, thank you, Your Honor. I move Council Bill 23-002, an ordinance annexing certain land into the city of Arvada, Colorado, Sabel Filing 3, a parcel of land located west of Urban Street and south of West 58th Avenue in the county of Jefferson and the state of Colorado, and Council Bill 23-003, an ordinance rezoning certain land within the city of Arvada, Sabel Filing 3, from Jefferson County A2 Agricultural to City of Arvada PUD Planned Development, and amending the official zoning maps of the City of Arvada, Colorado parcel of land west of Urban Street and south of 58th Avenue, And lastly, Council Bill 23-004, an ordinance rezoning certain land within the city of Arvada, Ralston Gardens, from RN-7.5 residential neighborhood 7500 to MXN mixed use neighborhood, and annexing and amending official zoning maps of the city of Arvada, Colorado, parcel of land located at the southeast corner of Ralston Road and Garrison Street, formerly known as 5790 Garrison Street, all be approved on first reading, ordered published in full, and a public hearing date set for February 6th, 2023 at 6:15 p.m.
Very good. Motions for approval on first reading. For the scouts and others in the audience, what we do is we have first readings so that we give notice to the public of upcoming issues that will come before us, and we've indicated that on these matters will come before us on February 6th of this year during a regularly scheduled meeting. Mr. Jones, how do you vote?
Yes.
And the rest of council votes yes as well. The first readings are approved. Next, I will open the public hearing on Council Bill 23-001, an ordinance amending Section 30-4 of the Arvada City Code pertaining to council districts. Mr. Moorman has reserved the motion. Can I, Ms. Gillis, are you presenting this?
I am.
Okay.
Are you looking for somebody else?
Well, I didn't know if legal counsel, or I was going to maybe have Kristen Rush, since she's done all the heavy lifting on it.
Well, you know, and that would be fair. Kristen has done a lot of heavy lifting on this. Mayor and members of council, the City of Arvada's charter states the City Council shall establish districts and revise, alter, or change the boundaries within 1 year following the official publication of the federal census and upon completion of Jefferson and Adams counties revising their precincts. Jefferson and Adams County published their revised precinct maps in February of 22, making it necessary for the city to revise its own election boundaries on or before February of 2023. The City of Arvada's charter provides the city's 4 districts shall be based upon the number of inhabitants residing in each district and have an equal number as near as may be, as required by the Constitution of the United States. The Colorado Constitution contains a requirement of a 5% standard deviation between districts. All proposed voting district maps meet these general requirements. In the discussion session of your agenda of the council report to City Council for the public hearing, you see 3 options, all of which meet those requirements. And with that, I'll open it for your discussion.
Very good. First, I'll open it up for public comment. Is there anybody that would like to address City Council on the districts? Again, for the benefit of the scouts and others in the room, we have to do this because as our population shifts in terms of where we have people living, we have to change our boundaries to some extent, so that for our 4 districts, we have 4 districts within the city, you've got 2 council members that are elected at large, meaning that they, all of us represent the entire city. But it's important that we have representation from each district, and that those districts need to be, those 4 districts need to be approximately the same size. So we have 4 district council members, 2 council members who are elected at large, and then the mayor is elected at large as well. So with that, I'll close the public comment portion and open up for discussion, understanding that Ms. Moore, if you would like to make your motion, then we can have discussion on your motion.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. I move that CB 23-001, an ordinance amending Section 30-4 of the Arvada City Code pertaining to council districts, be approved on final reading numbered 4834 and ordered published by title only, and that option A be adopted as the city's official election boundary map. May I provide my comments at this time?
Yes, you may.
I am selecting option A because I have studied the maps pretty extensively. I've driven out and looked at the changes in the boundaries, and my primary lens through this is how is this going to impact our current residents and who represents them just by their districts. And in doing so, I believe that option A has the lowest impact on current residents, the smallest amount of change to our district boundaries, recognizing that any change when you move someone from one district to another, for some folks that may mean that they may have to wait 6 years between elections. if they're changed into another district that doesn't occur for another 4 years after the past election cycle. And so taking that into consideration, I believe that option A reduces that impact the greatest of the different options, and would ask for your support in option A.
Very good. Ms. Simpson?
Thank you. So I appreciate Councilmember Mormon's reasoning. As the city staff knows, I took a pretty good look at this. So one thing that's always struck me as being important in terms of our districts is that the districts are basically roughly designed up like an X. It's north, east, south, and west. And that's pretty important because, different areas of Arvada were built up at different times. So they have very distinct personalities between them. No one would accuse Southeast Arvada of resembling Northwest Arvada, and for good reason. And so I've always thought it would be important. At the state level, it's written into the rules that you must keep communities of interest together. And so at the city level, what does that look like? Well, it looks like keeping neighborhoods together that are traditionally and historically been more together. And so my own district is District 2. It's the southeast side of the city. And none of these maps dramatically impacted my district. So that was, kind of a relief right up front. But what I did notice was with a couple of them, one of our other districts, notably District 1, came really, really far south. And District 1 is historically the north side of the city. And I just struggle with the idea of somebody representing Stanley Lake all the way down below Ralston Road. That's not a continuous community of interest. So and with that, I'm pleased to also, I didn't see much issue with option C. I think that's also a fine option, but I will be supporting the motion to support option A.
Very good. See no other comments. If people will vote. All votes are cast. Mr. Jones, how do you vote?
Yes.
Remainder of votes have cast as well, and that passes unanimously. So those will be the new boundaries for our 4 districts. Thank you thank you to Kristen Rush and her team, and I know that we've got other folks in the city who played an important role in terms of making sure that the numbers worked and that the divisions were done upright. So thank to the city team for their work to get this done, and for the council's unanimous support. Next, we'll move on to our workshop tonight. So we have a DEI Consultant Presentation. Ms. Gillis?
I will turn it over to Deputy City Manager Linda Haley.
Ms. Haley?
Good evening, City Council. Okay. We'll hope that this works for me as well. Fingers crossed. All right. I am so excited to be here, and I think I speak on behalf of many of us that we are thrilled to finally be at this point in our DEI journey to officially have launched with our consultant that we've selected. And so tonight we'll be introducing you to our consultant and their project plan. But before we do that, I'd like to give a brief overview as to the steps we took to get to here today. So under the overview, a little more context for the first bullet. As you all will recall, we needed to take a pause and do a bit of a reset at the beginning of 2022 to take some time to do some more focused discussions with all of you as City Council and to really understand what we feel is a good approach in this incredibly important topic. And so with that, City Council, you conducted 2 study sessions, one in May and one in August. And at your August study session, you directed the city team to pursue a consultant who will focus DEI efforts internally regarding our operations and our services to better enhance our services with a DEI lens for our community. So with that direction that we received, we were able to then launch a new request for proposal, one that was more clearly focused and aligned. And that process started in September of 2022. We had a very competitive process. We had 8 consultants provide bids for us, and our process involved an extensive evaluation and interview process with city team members from across the organization. We were really excited that we had a unanimous decision to select MGT of America Consulting, otherwise known as MGT Consulting, or MGT. And so that contract was officially signed with MGT in December of 2022. So bringing us to today, I also want to take this moment to ensure that we point out the alignment in your City Council strategic plan. We specifically prioritize DEI in our organizational and service effectiveness strategic results, highlighting the milestone and goal that you see in that gold box by the end of this year to work on establishing systems and structures to embed enhanced levels of sustainability, accessibility, equity, and safety in our services and operations. Also, as you'll see on this slide, we're highlighting some of the specific goals and focus areas for this project. These all came from your direction as in your August 11 study session, and these were highlighted as priority areas of focus in the RFP, specifically in the statement of work. So you will hear more about some of the work that will be performed by our consultants in support of these goals and focus areas. So enough from me. With that, I'd like to introduce you to MGT Consulting. We're very excited about this consulting group. They have extensive experience working with municipal governments to further their DEI goals. MGT is a nationally recognized organization and consulting firm. They're headquartered in Florida, but we are fortunate that they have some local representation here in the Denver area. And tonight with us is our lead consultant, Dr. Lamont Brown. Lamont is the vice president of MGT. He lives in the Denver metro area, and he is here with us tonight. We're so pleased to have him. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lamont, and thank you so much for being here.
Good evening. It's good to see everyone. Thank you very, very much for having me. Just want to start with a quick overview of who we are, our team, our company, and then our approach to this very, very important work. I do live in the Colorado area in Denver with 3 girls and my wife. Shouldn't forget her. Prior to consulting, I spent 15 years in education as a teacher, principal, and district administrator, the last of which was in Aurora Public Schools. And so we bring a lot of equity-focused work to this role. I am the Vice President of DEI Solution for MGT. And you can see some of the skill sets that I bring to this important work. I'll be serving as the executive in charge and senior project manager. Laura Opheim is another DEI consultant who serves as a manager for this project, and she's a Golden resident. You'll notice that not only are we diverse by gender and race, but also by geographic location. David lives in the Seattle, Washington area. Juan lives in Baltimore. And Jamie lives in Detroit. So we bring a national perspective, not just where we live, but also our experience and our depth of experience with this work. Each one of us will have several different roles on this project. Myself and Laura, being local here and focusing on community and staff engagement, will lead each of those aspects of the work. MGT is indeed a public sector consulting firm based out of Florida, but offices all over the country, including here in Colorado. You can see we've had a lot of clients over 48 years of service, but each of the clients you see on the right side are recent, in the last 18 months, including Arapahoe County and Pitkin County, which we are undergoing that project now. We focus on DEI in general, but also really with a focus on organizational improvement. And so improving culture, improving the work experience for staff members, and having a sense of what is working for the communities that our clients serve. And so you can see in the top right-hand side some of the other services that we provide for our clients. However, we customize our specific approach to the RFP, into which each one of our clients ask for, but also to their individual clientele and specific needs and culture. So I'd like to spend a few minutes just giving a high-level overview of our approach. There are 5 major phases to this project. The first is client engagement and best practices. We believe in building a authentic and genuine relationship with our clients, and so we've already had a project kickoff. We have bi-weekly project management meetings with the city team, and we also start with a best practices landscape analysis, where we compile a host of research on what other organizations are doing, what's working, what's not working, And that summary is kind of a driving force for each of our clients. Organizational assessment and community landscape analysis, phases 2 and 3 are the bulk of the work, where we are analyzing data, policy, and practice. We'll be speaking to staff members through a survey, as well as focus groups, to get a sense of what's the strengths and if there are any gaps in the internal culture. As you heard earlier, this is mainly an internally focused project, but there is a community aspect of it as well. And so that involves focus groups with local content experts and other community leaders, getting perspective and providing a space for folks to share their perspective on what's working and what areas can be improved upon for the city. All of that will be compiled in a comprehensive report, and most likely I'll be back here at some point in the future presenting our findings and recommendations. And then the final and probably most critical aspect of the work is an action plan. I will say a lot of our clients stop at the assessment portion. We're pleased that the city was committed enough to ask for an action plan as well. And so those recommendations in that final report will be presented to ideally a diverse group of staff members to co-develop the action plan. We differentiate that from a strategic plan for obvious reasons. This is more focused on what needs to happen to improve, again, the organizational culture and any services that are impacting equity for residents. And that ultimately leads itself to a multi-year plan with a set of priorities and initiatives that ideally is adopted and sets forth the future for the city. Just a few more details, just to have an understanding. We will get a set of policies, both internal and external facing, from city staff. We have developed our own policy maturity scale. So each of these will be rated and identify strengths as well as any gaps, and that leads to our ultimate recommendations. So you'll see a numeric code that aligns with the scale that you see on the screen that allows you to have an idea of just how strong each of the current policies and practices are. We believe heavily in people empowerment, and so making sure that every person has a voice. Again, this is mostly an internally focused assessment, and so it is our approach to make sure that staff feels like their voice is being heard. We will also do, as I mentioned on the previous slide, focus groups with community groups to get their perspective as well, and all of that will be compiled anonymously into our final report. And this slide just shares how we analyze data. And so we take an intersectional approach to different themes to identify exactly what the data is telling us. A lot of this is from our stakeholder engagement. And so the survey that will be developed will have a host of multiple choice questions, but also a host of open-ended items. And so we review every single item. We've had in the thousands in the past. I hope to have that again, and then identify what themes exist from there, and those themes will then inform the strengths that we are highlighting, as well as some of the recommendations we'll make to improve upon any gaps that we find. And then this is a high-level overview of our community approach. There are some data points. It's mostly about practices that we will be evaluating that'll drive our assessment of external-facing practices and how they affect the community. And this is a very high-level overview of our plan. Our project kicked off in earnest this month, and we expect it to take about 7 months. Sometimes it can go faster or slower based on availability of staff, the time it takes for our assessment, as well as just scheduling of any kind of meetings. But that is the benefit of having our biweekly project management meetings where we're reviewing every aspect of the project, identifying any challenges, immediately problem solving. So we're able to stay on task for the benefit of the staff, but also the community who is so impacted by all of this work. And I'll just say that it gives myself and my team great pleasure to be a partner with the city. We do not believe in a one-size-fits-all approach, and so we rely on a very trusting relationship with each one of our clients, and are really excited to dive in, to go into it with an open, an objective mind, see where the data leads us, and be a partner with the city indefinitely. to help you all really achieve the goals that you're seeking for each of your staff members and every community member. So with that said, I'd like to thank you for the time and happy to open it up for any questions.
Yes, Mr. Marriott.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just have a couple questions for you. So I noticed you do your work and you provide a report, and then after that, we've also ordered an action plan. Is part of that either the report or the action plan a summary or a research of the costs of certain actions or a cost-benefit analysis of your action plan, for instance, because very little is free these days.
Great question, great question. That leads to something bigger, which is just great things have a cost. And so the assessment report itself is simply our approach, our findings, and our recommendations. That is separate from the action plan that I will personally facilitate with staff members to develop. We've often had clients say, hey, we see several action items on here. Can you give us an idea of what this would cost? Arapahoe County is an example of that. And so we use our market analysis and best practice research of what other city and other municipalities are doing to give you all an idea of what that cost could be. Sometimes that is helpful to allow you to prioritize. We often say that you may want to adopt every single recommendation. We would never say do it all at one time. And so that's why it's a multi-year approach. Internal capacity of staff should be considered as well as cost. And so to specifically answer the question, the cost itself is not included in the report, but we do offer that if requested, so you have a better idea of the feasibility from an economic standpoint of the action plan.
Okay. Let me ask similar question, but give you a specific example. So one of the things that's been suggested as we've looked into this is that translation or producing documents in multiple languages is would improve, access for folks. And so I would imagine that's one of the things you may look at. And, I can picture one way of doing that would be to survey what are all the languages that could possibly or are spoken or read or understood in our city. So listing, those. And then I would assume from that you might decide how many people does this affect, and then come up with a cost for how far down the list you go, or a total cost to get them all, however many that is. So is that the type of thing you're talking about when you talk about an action plan and then trying to make value judgments within an action plan? Do you guys actually assist us with that, or is that what our job is after you produce?
Great question. It really comes from the development of the action plan. And so my hunch, let's assume that what you're saying ends up being the case, that we are speaking to community members and our staff, and one of the themes we are identifying is there's not enough language accessibility for every single staff member, every single resident. So that may be a theme that we identify. We may have recommendations such as explore the cost-benefit analysis of ensuring multiple languages are accessible for city documents. If that is something that the city would move forward with, then we can certainly provide support in identifying what that cost would be. It would be kind of a general idea without doing really deep analysis, but you'd have an idea of what that would be. And then part of that would be if there are certain languages that are much more utilized and there's a stronger need, then we might prioritize it that way as well.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Simpson?
So thank you. So you actually said the exact words that were about to come out of my mouth, cost-benefit analysis. To Mr. Marriott's point, I do agree. It's always really valuable information to know what the ask is going to be on the city resources, because every dollar that we invest in one place has to come from another place. We don't have extra funds lying around. However, in part of that, when you look at things as investments, oftentimes they pay dividends. And so if we have that more comprehensive understanding of, this costs this to invest, but what is the yield back for the community? I think that that helps us identify some of the most important places where we can make investments first. And I really appreciate the use of the term action plan. One of the things that drives me the most nuts is when, and this happens a lot in academic circles, we identify an issue and then we talk it to death. And we come up with grand visions about where we want to go, but we don't come up with the little ladder rungs that it takes to get there. So I really appreciate the use of the word action and appreciate identifying things we can do in order to reach whatever the long-term goals ultimately are identified as needing to be.
Ms. Smith?
I would just like to say I see your action plan and raise you an implementation plan. Nothing drives you nuts is when we get like a plan and then it goes on a shelf because there's no implementation. And I was just curious on your experience in implementation planning around this work.
Fantastic question. I'll just say I concur with the point wholeheartedly. And again, every client sometimes asks for something different. And so we have one who said, hey, this is a great plan. We realize through this work that we don't have the capacity to do this. Like everyone's already working a full-time job. And so they've asked us to then come on board to support the implementation, whether it's leading meetings, leading training sessions, actually leading the work that is included in the action plan. And so the RFP stated an action plan. I do appreciate the differentiation between that and implementation plan. But the analysis of the work that ends up on that plan, that we don't know what it is right now, and the assessment of city capacity can lead to that as an additional service that we'd be happy to offer.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mormon?
Thank you. Well, while we're talking about action plans, I'll just continue one of my questions with that, and that is, can you give some more specific examples of action plans or action steps, maybe even is a better word, from other communities like Arvada that, you know, what you know about our community so far, it might come to mind as, and I realize you haven't done the analysis, but at least to give us a picture of ideas of what we might be working towards.
Sure. I hate to say this, I don't want to lead you in a direction, but some of the things that we've done, or I should say that showed up on an action plan, but again, I facilitated, but it really is a staff using the results, the recommendations to develop the plan. And so I want to say first, this is a staff-driven plan based on our assessment and recommendations. We've seen the development of a DEI leadership role in the organization, director or type of role for some of our clients. We have seen the development of an internal task force that is made up of staff members representing all departments, who's meeting on a monthly basis, has access to leadership, and has some autonomy to evaluate and give feedback on policies and practices and how it impacts the staff. We've seen the need for clients or for cities to identify what equity means to them and define it, and then engage their community with that, because for some communities that hasn't been done. And you'll see many different pockets of communities have different perspectives on what it means and what's the benefits. And so that's been another item. And then sometimes we'll find that some of our findings based on staff input or engagement is questions around lack of pay equity. That some people are being treated differently than others or have better pay than others. And so one of the action plan items might be to conduct a pay equity analysis to determine just the extent to which there is discrepancies between genders, races, ages, et cetera. So that could be an item that's in there. And then to the point around cost-benefit analysis, we're very strategic with our words. So sometimes the action item will say, conduct an analysis to determine the viability of such, instead of saying to do such. And so that analysis allows you to identify truly the cost-benefit analysis and whether it's actually the most effective thing for the city. So those are some of the examples that we've seen.
And just to follow on that, how do you evaluate the effectiveness of those different action steps?
So we use our analysis of the organization, as well as what other communities have done, as well as just best practice research, to give a kind of our expert perspective on how significant something will be. And another example that kind of ties to that question as well as the previous one is sometimes we see that there could be a gap in leadership capacity and or buy-in. And so one of the action items might be to conduct training for all staff members, as an example, or leadership-specific training, so that there's greater awareness, sensitivity, and understanding, so that the future work is beneficial to everybody. And so that also helps drive success going forward. They can outlast current leadership, elected officials, et cetera, so that you have an indefinite positive culture.
Great, thank you. So I know that, we've given you a very focused scope of work around our services and programs that the city provides. And obviously our clients for those services and programs is our community. And so I really like to know a little bit more about the community engagement part of how you see the work you're doing and providing to the city and consulting. How will we engage that public, the clientele, so to speak, for our services and programs? And how will you be, choosing what groups to engage, looking at those that are underserved or underrepresented, those different groups that, we have in our community that don't always have a voice, aren't always feeling like there's equity in how they engage with the city?
Yep, great question. And this is a question we get a lot, and let me just state that this is primarily an internal focused assessment. And so it's about policies, practices, and the staff experience. There is an external component. We will identify, we will work with staff members to identify specific community groups, make sure we're reaching out to them. Most likely there'll be public announcements as well, so folks can contact us and say we'd like to engage. It could be a one-on-one conversation. Most of the time it's a focus group with, say, 7 or 8 different community organizations, and we'll have a set of questions and allow people an opportunity to give their perspective. And so that is the approach we will have, but that is different than a comprehensive, externally focused assessment. In that kind of assessment, you can imagine there's 12 different town hall meetings across the entire city. There's visits to schools, businesses, et cetera, to make sure that all pockets of the community are well represented. 100, 200, 300 different voices that are participating. So that is more included in an external focused assessment. What we've seen that a lot of our clients are seeking to, as they use the term I've heard many times, to get a house in order first, understand where we are before we go out externally. Sometimes the community, wants to rush, and that's the right perspective to have because this need is great. But understanding what the current needs are internally, getting leadership and staff up to that kind of baseline awareness, understanding, and ability is a best practice prior to doing the external assessment. And so to your very first question, a lot of times one of the action items is to do that external assessment with a specific focus based on some of the needs and opportunities we've developed through this project.
But just to be clear, for your work that you're going to be doing for the city now, we'll have a community engagement component.
There will indeed be a community engagement component. We will identify a communication strategy so the community understands that it's happening. And then we'll identify a set of community groups to hear their perspective through focus group and or interview conversations.
Okay, thank you. Just a few more questions, sorry. So part of our services and programs the city provides, relate to public safety is a big priority for us. And so I assume you'll be working with our police department, reviewing data there, looking at, court data as well to look at how, if there's any racial disparities and how we provide that service around public safety. Is that correct? So
we haven't identified what data points we would look at first yet. And so part of our biweekly project management meetings is to identify what are the policies, practices, and their data points that are priority for the city. And so that very well could be one of them, just hasn't been determined yet because we are so early in the process, in the project.
Okay. Well, I would recommend that be one of them for sure. And then I appreciate your school experience, so my next question is related to that. So while obviously the city doesn't have a jurisdiction over our schools per se as far as curriculum goes and the funding for our schools and things like that, there is an interface, again, with public safety and services that the city provides to support those schools. So I also hope that the schools will be another component of what you're looking at because it's a very much an integral part of our community as well. And so thinking about, too, law enforcement and how that occurs in our schools would be, I think, another data point to be looked at.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. I think that'll be it for now, but thank you for your time.
Mr. Fiver?
One, I'm excited to have you on board as our partner. So it's good to see this moving and appreciate your insight and your background. I also appreciate the fact that you say it's a staff's plan, and I appreciate the fact that you're willing to help on an action plan and try to implement it. But I've found that if the staff doesn't own it, it doesn't get adopted. So keep that mantra going, because I agree with you. The staff has to have some capacity to handle this, otherwise it'll never get adopted. I also appreciate the fact that you recognize that we're focusing internally first. It's kind of like the relationship, and even you can't help yourself, how can you help others, right? Kind of thing. So I really, really appreciate you making that comment. I want to tag on to Mr. Mormon's engagement of our clients. I think it's even deeper than that. Not just reaching out to groups, but we really do have clients. We have Section 8 clients, that I think some that are really quiet and may not be engaged, and you might want to try to figure out a way to get them at the table. I also want to balance that approach. If I was to encourage you with anything, is to make sure the room is a safe harbor room where all voices are equal and heard, and not just one's louder than the other, because I used to own some properties, and mine were all Section 8, and I appreciated all of those, my residents and my clients as well, but I also know that they're not the most vocal either, and it takes some people to stand up for them as well. And so I just want to make sure we really focus on finding where those folks are and trying to make sure they come to the table and participate, because I think their information is very valuable and genuine too. And then I also appreciate, I know we're barraging with some specific questions up here, and I know you're tap dancing a little bit, but I like it though. Because why? Because you want to start broad on your scope and not preconceive or prescribe where the problem or solution may lie or may not lie. I appreciate the fact that you're going to come in, look at our policy procedures, what we do, open-minded. Just look. You don't know where the problem lies until a third party comes in and looks at those things. And so, I'm excited to see what you'll find, not what the possibility or examples you do, because every community is unique of itself, right? And we're all different. And I'm really excited to see what maybe you could bring back to us later. And then lastly, I look at this as an informal audit in a way. I mean, at the end of the day, whatever recommendation you give, I'm sure, I know you're going to be working with the team and the staff and leadership, but ultimately, I think the council is going to be the true customer to your output of that report, and we'd like to, obviously see it at the same time that leadership does as well. So, I'm looking forward to that, and I appreciate the 7 months that you're going to spend with us, and hopefully get to learn a little bit about our community and our. I consider our city part of our community, and our city employees as our community. So, all of it, right?
Yes.
And then once we get past this, we'll see where the next steps are.
Looking forward to it very much.
Welcome. I didn't have questions. I just had comments.
Fantastic comments. Thank you.
Mr. Jones, anything from you?
Thank you. Just a couple of comments. Again, thank you for your presentation. Sorry I'm not there in person tonight, but as I look back at the council strategic plan, which is to establish systems and structures to embed enhanced levels of sustainability, accessibility, equity, and safety in our services and operations, I think that I'm glad that was brought out, and that should be key to kind of your investigation of all of this conversation. And so if I could just, ask you to, similarly to what others have said, but, communication is key with all stakeholders. Timing does matter. With regard to, to moving through this. So I'm glad that we bookmarked this kind of in a 7-month time frame here. But I also don't want to get so caught up in the activities that all of a sudden now we've got a destination. I think this is a journey, and I think that we have to look at it that way and discover along the way. So again, excited that you're on board, and for the opportunity to learn from your team as you kind of dig in and figure out how we can better look at our system structures and all that's related to kind of our strategic plan. So thank you.
Yeah, my takeaway, and I really appreciated your comment, that let's make sure we've got the city's house in order. And certainly that's going to take some external input. You know, we can't just be judging ourselves. We need to know what the community thinks about it as well. But we need to really be addressed on how do we internally make sure we're doing things right before we try to solve the world's problems. So we look forward to working with you, and I think it is going to be a great journey. Very good.
Thank you.
And then I do have a couple of individuals who are signed up for public comment. Amy Travin.
Good evening. Yes, my name is Amy Travin. I have been a resident of Arvada for 10 years now, and I'm kind of excited to say that it's been 10 years. But one key word there that I would like to note is that I am a resident here. I am part of a grassroots community called Arvadans for Social Justice. We appreciate that the city is continuing to try to move forward in this work. A couple of hesitations that we have, or at least I have, and I must note before moving on. First, I ask that history not be forgotten. I'm hesitant that while reviewing the data, the history of both long ago and more recent Arvada is going to be lost. There's a history of Arvada before any of us were here and before our grandparents and great-grandparents were here. There's a history that cannot be ignored when working with and in this community. There are Native Americans in our own community living and breathing right now that have voices to be listened to for this work. I urge the consultant to not miss out on those particular voices when engaging with the community. Additionally, I don't want the longer ago history forgotten, but also the more recent history. From just a year ago when the first consultant was hired, the women and Native American-led experts in DEI, We the People. I urge the consultants to ask around everyone here what they remember, and also urge the consultants to watch that meeting from a year ago to gauge for themselves how open the city is to this work and what may be required to move forward in it. The other hesitation I have is something that we've kind of been talking about, what I've been hearing you talk about just tonight, is internal work versus external work. And there's not just internal work in the city and external work in the city. There's internal work in ourselves, and there's external work that we do with other people. And this work is not something that we just do externally. This is stuff we do internally as well, specifically for people who probably look like me, who are white. And if you are white and identify as white, and if when I say that it makes you feel defensive, why does it make you feel defensive? And instead of just sitting in that defensiveness, sit in curiousness. Why am I defensive about that work? I was there too. I am still probably there a little bit. It makes me hesitant to say it right now, like I'm a white person. But if we don't question ourselves, the work that you're going to try and do and that the city employees are going to try and do is not going to be able to move forward. I'm also really worried that this is going to be an amazing audit that's going to be conducted, and then it's going to just sit on a shelf. And one of the things that's going to prevent it from actually being implemented is us personally not doing the work. So I urge you to personally do the work. I can be a partner with you if you want to talk about it. We have a book club at ASJ. Come join our book club. But again, if you feel like you have potentially participated in these systems that are actively oppressing some of our community members, it can be hard to engage in this work. So I urge you to try and do that. After some hesitations, I have some questions for the consultants. Melissa was able to articulate some of those earlier. We also have a few more. You know, we're wondering what sort of experience the consultants have in dealing with groups that consist of some people who are really excited about the work and some people who might be more hesitant about the work. What sorts of examples can you give where you moved the work forward and adhered to the principles of DEI work in the face of opposition? Additionally, we would love to know what are some examples of action plans specifically with other communities. I think you notated that. Sorry, that's just in my notes. Okay, so one big thing that came up in this past hour, whatever we've been sitting here, is, you know, the alleged cost-benefit analysis of this work. And that question, unfortunately, just really gets my goat because it's a question of trying to put a monetary assessment on somebody's actual lived experience in our community. Who do we want to feel like that should belong here? And how are we going to get them so that they feel like they belong here? Is never going to be, to me, a price point. And to equate those two, I can't get past that. So whatever the cost is, I think that it's worth it because people's lives are quite literally on the line when we're doing this work. And, you know, one of the things that is the benefit of doing this work is a great leader that we all recognized just a couple weeks ago, Martin Luther King Jr. and his beloved community. He is an individual that says that that's the benefit of doing this work, right? And so we're not just going to be looking to these consultants to show us how to do this work. We have to look at ourselves as well. How am I going to help this work move forward? So thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for your input. John Olson.
Good evening. My name is John Olson. I'm a resident and full-time resident and citizen of Arvada. I appreciate the opportunity to talk tonight. My purpose for being here is to implore the council to take all legal and appropriate measures to adopt gun violence prevention ordinances. Regrettably, every community in the United States and Colorado have suffered the horrible consequences of gun violence, and Arvada is no exception. As I was thinking about coming here and talking tonight, I found some interesting and shocking pieces of information. The first, Colorado suffered over 1,000 deaths from guns in 2021. Second piece of information, Colorado broke its own unenviable state record in 2022 for mass shootings. We had 13. And the injuries and deaths from those mass shootings also set a record, 80, where the previous record was 74. Third piece of information, Colorado's high number of suicides has driven the state's total rate of gun deaths 13% above the national average. Fact, 2 years ago, gun violence surpassed car accidents as the most likely way that an American 18 years or younger would die, as the most common. Again, in 2021, it was the most likely, and the facts aren't in yet on 2022, but it appears like that's headed to the same regrettable statistic. Although the rhetoric surrounding gun violence prevention too often devolves into an all-or-nothing shouting match, gun violence prevention ordinances do not have to be a zero-sum issue, where I win, you lose, you win, I lose. It doesn't have to be that. There are things that can be done to reduce gun violence that do not infringe on citizens' rights to own guns. During the 2021 Colorado legislative session, state lawmakers passed laws giving localities the flexibility to come up with their own ordinances addressing the sale, purchase, and possession of firearms within their jurisdictions. Additionally, I'm asking the council to enact regulations regarding the safe storage of guns. As horrifying as they are, mass shootings account for just 1% of violent gun deaths. According to Aaron Dunkerley, chair of the Firearms and Suicide Committee of the American Association of Suicidology, and I quote, "There's a fix that would reduce the leading cause of gun deaths in the United States. Only 2 states, Oregon and Massachusetts, have safe storage laws requiring gun owners to keep all their weapons under lock and key when not in use. This helps mitigate the risk of others finding and using loaded weapons, and it means that many attempted suicides either won't be successful or won't be tried at all, end quote. Lastly, 73% of Colorado voters said gun violence was an important factor to them in the November 2022 elections. In summary, gun violence is at historic highs. Gun violence grows significantly every year. Colorado municipalities have been given the authority to pass gun violence prevention ordinances. Gun violence prevention ordinances do not have to be a win-lose proposition. And then lastly, gun violence was an important factor to 73% of Colorado voters in 2022. I urge you to pass all illegal and appropriate gun violence prevention ordinances this year, and I thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Do we have anybody else that would like to address City Council? We have nobody else via Zoom or otherwise. I'll close the public comment portion. City Council, any reports? Mr. Mormon.
Thank you, Mayor. Just quickly, I will be having my monthly coffee chat this Friday, the 27th, from 2 to 4 at Sweet Bloom Coffee in 77th and Wadsworth. Invite anybody who'd like to come and talk about what's happening in the city.
Good. Mr. Jones, do you have anything?
I do not, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Simpson, anything from you? No? Okay. Ms. Gillis, I'll turn it over to you then.
Okay, and I do have a few things I need to cover that we were not able to cover ahead of time, so I ask for your patience. So one reminder, the press conference will be next Monday, so that'll be ahead of council. I'll put that in the weekly, and I want to make sure that we're there. That relates to the auto theft bill being proposed. Also, we had mentioned to you in the January 13th conversation that we would be in front of you to provide the summary of the accident, the auto pet accident up in Candelas. We provided that information to you, but would ask if you would still like us to schedule time to talk to council. We will be reaching out to those who have asked questions, but I'll need to program time on your agenda to have that discussion.
Anybody on council feel a need for further discussion on that, or can you get individual questions answered? I think we're good. Okay. I need some responses on the Lake Arbor tours for anybody else so that we can get those reset. Of course there'll be another snow day, but we do want to get that ahead of the conversation that we're going to have. So
I believe you're doing Thursday morning. Is that correct? This coming Thursday morning?
Yes.
So I'll join that.
Okay.
I'll join that time.
Okay. Thank you. This is a heftier topic. The boards and commissions conversations that are scheduled for February 27th, we cannot squeeze them all in one night, so we're asking if it's possible for the interview teams to provide and agree upon a time where we can schedule you for your interviews on a different night. We will need to get those. You're going to provide your applicants that are going to be interviewed by February 6th, so if you can give us those times. Typically, what we've done is from 4 to 6 on the night, which would be February 27th, we would have some opportunity for you to do your team interviews. And then starting at 6 o'clock, we would do the full council interviews of Aura Housing and the Liquor Authority. That will take you until 9 o'clock to get those all done in one night between 6 and 9. So I'm checking, does that work for you all? Okay. We'll make that happen then. So looking for you to give other nights to start scheduling once we have those applicants.
Do you want to do a doodle poll or something of that nature or?
Kristen will reach out to you as far as the other nights.
Very good.
And I'm assuming that you'll talk to your teammate.
Can I just ask a point of clarification? So are you saying we're not going to be able to complete all of those in one night and we have to do a second night?
You will not have time to do all your other committees, not the full council interviews, but to cover your other committee interviews, you cannot get them all done in one night. The team interviews, along with the full council interviews, can't occur unless you stay until 10? Almost 10:30. which really probably isn't feasible for your applicants. Anytime after 8 o'clock with applicants, it's an ask, even with the Zoom options that we have this year.
So you want us to get with our co-council member to
Yes.
schedule time for our specific ones?
Yes.
Got it.
Okay? Kristen will reach out and help get that coordinated. So there's some time between 4 and 6 to do some of them. And then from 6 to 9, we'll do full council interviews. And then beyond that, we're counting on you. Okay? Mr. Pfeiffer, do you have a question?
Well, I'm
I
assuming
can see
since
it.
we have the Festivals Commission, we need 3 nights because it looks like there would be a lot of applicants. Okay, Kristen says
Kristen will
2.
talk to you.
Okay.
She's the pro at this, so she'll get us where we need to be. Also, for the February 10th chamber dinner, we'll need to open up those seats because we're getting close if you're not going. So far we have Councilmember Simpson, Mayor Williams, and plus ones. And I think Marriott and anybody else? Okay, plus one, okay. Pardon me? Oh, okay. We're hitting you twice on that, okay.
David, are you coming?
I wish I was. I'm going to be coming back from Dallas, so.
I think Dallas is no longer part of the United States after a certain football game yesterday, so you may not.
Well, we're going to help kind of pull the team back together.
Okay, good for you.
Cowboys always know how to do a good cell phone.
Okay, and then one more item there. If we have open questions, we're going to try and make sure we schedule about 15 minutes in the pre-council meeting to get those asked. But if you have any questions on the other information provided, please let me know, because we'll be paying attention to that. And I think there was one other thing.
Well, we do have a discussion that we had at lunch today about the process of interviewing for boards and commissions, if we want a formal rubric or not. And what's that? No.
I said no.
Yeah, I don't think we do. I think that to a large extent, so much of boards and commissions, we're looking for skill sets, we're looking for, frankly, our gut reaction to people. So I don't know that I can get so formal on it that I use an actual rubric to say, okay, this one scored a 9.3 and this one scored a 9.2.
Could we at least have some standardization of questions to ask? I don't think that it's fair to
Yes, I
have
think
no
that.
measurement.
Yes, I think some standardization of questions makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for compromising.
So as council has already always owned this process and held these as council appointees, staff has not stepped ahead to develop these standard questions. So my other ask of you is, are you going to, with your teams, do standard questions? And then for the broad council interviews, we can give you some questions. What is your preference? We are happy to support you, but this has always been a council-owned process.
Would it be like 3 questions probably that we'd be asking? It's a short.
My sense is I would like to see maybe a couple of questions recommended by the staff, and also, if it's not too much, to ask the committees themselves, like what they think would be a good question of somebody joining them, since they're the ones who do the work. Maybe they could each committee could supply 1 to 2 questions that they would like to have asked of their potential future committee mates.
The applications themselves have questions in there that the staff liaisons provided.
Good.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Pfeiffer?
Well, I was just going to say, Dave and I have always asked the same question for the last, I don't know how many years we've done this. We always ask the same set of questions perfectly every time. Are we asking that we need to now document those questions? And
I think you're
take
doing it
notes?
better than some of us others may have been.
Well, when
Bob and I are a great team.
but here's the thing, we also have the committee that has the most interviews. I think we probably have 20 or something we're gonna have to interview. So we have the most where you guys have like 8. So we have to be a well-oiled machine, but we also have to make sure we're asking the questions consistently. Oh, yeah. Oh, so you're talking about the team questions?
Yeah.
My only comment would be that we do ask the applicants consistent questions. It's on the application, every one of them. There's like 8 questions. They all answer the same question. We all have it the same way. And then when we meet with them face to face, that's our opportunity to ask something
Clarifying.
different. And that if we restrict ourselves to asking the same questions when we see them face to face, then we ought to just add those to the application in future years and get them answered that way and preserve our ability to ask them a question that we would like to answer.
That's
like
fair.
to ask them.
And to be clear, I do think clarifying questions and follow-up questions to their responses is part of it. I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's maybe both.
So would it be possible for the group, like the whole council team, to have the city staff create a couple of recommended questions, and then maybe the sub-teams can pick 2, 3 questions?
Are you not confident in your own ability to ask a question?
No, clearly not.
I think what it is it goes back to the team interviews last year from the, I believe it was either housing, it was either planning or aura. We, as a council, noticed that we had some vastly different questions to different candidates, and I think it might be better to have a few standard opening ones, and then we delve into clarifying from there, particularly for those large interviews, which can get unwieldy with all 7 of us in the room.
So what I'm hearing is we will provide you some options for your group.
And whether or not we
questions.
adopt them will be our decision.
Great. We will be here for you.
Good, very good. Ms. Gillis, now that I've got you deeply in the...
I'm done here. But if you need anything, just ask. We're here for you. We can do that very, very easily, and absolutely respect that this is your
Yeah.
process.
And this may be opening a can of worms, but we may ask that Marine Fair give us a minimal amount of input into what urban renewal might be looking for in there. That
Okay.
way, it's not just me getting beat up by her.
And will you be talking to Ms. Fair, or would you like me to?
No, I'll do it. but,
Okay.
Yeah, but
Okay.
so that we get some direction, or some suggestions, not direction. Ms. Morris, do you have anything?
No, Your Honor, nothing from me.
Very good. Thank you, productive meeting. We are adjourned.
Thank you.